All right, we're going to up the ante and read 4 pages today, right? Pages 56, 57, 58, and 59. Now, I have been holding my glasses until yesterday. I bought me a new pair, and I've been holding the phone as I tried to read from the book. And it has probably made me stumble reading, so I'm going to find a better way. I can't find the little holder that I have for my phone. And once I find it, then I can position my phone without having to hold it, and I'll read smoother. But let's get started. Artists of Note, Part 2. Miles Davis, a trumpet sensation from Alton, Illinois. Davis dropped out of the Juilliard School of Music in New York in 1944 to play with the saxophone genius Charlie Parker. He joined nightly jam sessions at Minton's Playhouse and Monroe's 2 clubs, where musicians developed a jazz style that would become known as bebop. Davis was soon recognized for his sweet sound and inventive arrangements. As a band leader and mentor, Davis shared the stage with John Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, Ron Carter, and many other gifted musicians. His long and impressive career included several compositions that pushed jazz in new directions. Kind of Blue, which he recorded in 1959, is the best-selling jazz album of all time. Awarded countless honors during his lifetime, Davis is widely regarded as one of the most influential musicians of the 20th century. Lorraine Hansberry. When Lorraine Hansberry's A Raisin in the Sun opened at the Ethel Barrymore Theater in New York on March 11, 1959, it became the first play by an African-American woman to be produced on Broadway. Born and raised in Chicago, Hansberry studied at the University of Wisconsin before leaving for New York City. She found work as a writer and editor for Freedom, a black newspaper founded by Paul Robeson. After several years in New York, she quit journalism and devoted herself to writing. A Raisin in the Sun takes its title from a poem by Langston Hughes and tells the story of a struggling Chicago family. It starred Sidney Poitier and ran for 534 performances. 2 years later, it was adapted into an award-winning film. Hansberry was also an outspoken defender of civil rights and an advocate for equality for women. Along with several other artists and activists, including Harry Belafonte, Lena Horne, and James Baldwin, she met with Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy on May 24, 1963, to discuss rising racial tensions. That same year, her second play, The Sign in Sidney Brewston's Window, opened on Broadway. Hansberry died in 1965 from cancer before she could complete a third play. She was 34. Nina Simone. While growing up in Tryon, North Carolina, Eunice Wayman dreamed of being the first major African-American classical pianist. Instead, she became Nina Simone, a gifted pianist and world-famous jazz singer. After dropping out of music school, Wayman took jobs playing piano in bars and nightclubs. At the urging of a club owner, she began to sing as well. She changed her name to Nina Simone and released her first album in 1957. It included a version of George Gershwin's I Love You, Porgy, that became her only top 20 hit. Berry Gordy. Berry Gordy founded Motown Records in 1959. From a small house on Detroit's West Grand Boulevard, he built the company into the nation's largest black-owned business. Its success depended on what Gordy called the Motown sound, a blend of traditional black music forms and mainstream pop melodies. A brilliant talent scout, Gordy signed many of the greatest black music stars of the era. Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder, and Michael Jackson all achieved global stardom as Motown recording artists. In 1972, Gordy moved Motown to Los Angeles and began to make movies as well as music. His first production, Lady Sings the Blues, earned 5 Academy Award nominations. Gordy also wrote the book for Motown, the musical, staged on Broadway in 2013. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988. In 2016, President Barack Obama presented Gordy with a National Medal of Arts, the highest award given to artists by the U.S. government. During the racially charged 1960s, I'm sorry, this goes with Nina Simone's writing. No, who is this? Yes, it does. I'm sorry, I should have went from this part over to here. So let's get back to Nina Simone. During the racially charged 1960s, she wrote several popular songs that were closely associated with the civil rights movement. Mississippi, let me just say, Goddam, was written after the murder of Medgar Evers and the bombing deaths of the 4 girls in Birmingham's 16th Street Baptist Church. 4 women told the story of 4 uniquely African American lives. To Be Young, Gifted, and Black, a song expressing pride in being black, took its title from a Lorraine Hansberry work. In search of peace and quiet, Simone left the United States in 1970 and lived in several other countries. She eventually settled in France and remained there until her death in 2003. Sidney Poitier. Sidney Poitier was already a star of stage and screen when he achieved his historical landmark in 1964. That year, he won the Academy Award for Best Actor and his performance in Lilies of the Field. Poitier was the first black performer to receive the award. Raised in the Bahamas, he immigrated to New York City after a brief stint in the Army. He took acting lessons at the American Negro Theater, and before long, he was on his way to Broadway, supporting roles in, Lysistrata and Anna Lucasta led to film work. In 1950, he made his Hollywood debut that year in No Way Out. A succession of films followed, including starring roles in Blackboard, Jungle, Porgy and Bess, and A Raisin in the Sun. His stardom continued to soar after he won the Academy Award. In films such as In the Heat of the Night, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and To Sir with Love, Poitier secured his place as a box office champion in later years. He became a director, taking the helm of his... He became a director, taking the helm of films such as Buck and The Preacher and Stir Crazy. His many honors and awards include the Presidential Medal of Freedom received from President Obama in 2009. I'm going to continue even though I'm tired. So listen, even when you get tired, you just finish what you're doing. Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix's career as a solo artist lasted only about 4 years, but that was enough time to establish him as the greatest rock guitarist of his generation. His musical journey began at 16 when his father brought him his first acoustic guitar. A year later, he acquired an electric version and began performing with bands. After getting out of the Army in 1962, he played with popular R&B artists like the Isley Brothers, B.B. King, and Little Richard. He moved to London 4 years later and formed the Jimi Hendrix Experience, the band's first album. Are You Experience was released in 1967. It included such hits as Purple Haze and The Wind Cries Mary. His next 2 albums were also quite popular, and Hendrix promoted them by playing before live audiences. Listeners everywhere were thrilled by his wondrous sound and his dramatic way of performing. At the Monterey Pop Festival, he ended his concert by setting his guitar on fire. He set at the Woodstock Festival. His set at the Woodstock Festival made him a legend.